Abba Yahuwah, I just want to praise and thank you for this day. Wow, Father. How much already you have spoken in the hour that we are in. I just want to thank you for the Shabbat, Father. I am so overwhelmed to understand that truly you are the one that has ordained that we are to be able to have these feasts. These are your festivals. These are your appointed times. These are your times that you have put in place. You created this world, this Eretz, in 7 days. In 7 days you created, and you are the one that created everything in 7 days, in 6 days, and on the 7th day you rested. You rested. But yet, how sad it is that mankind are in a place where they have changed commands, changed the days of the week, changed everything, changed when the day begins. I mean, the Bible is very clear where it tells you they were unclean until the sun set. And from the time that the sun set, they would then be allowed to come back into the camp because the new day would begin. But we will still have our arguments and want to be able to do things according to our own mindsets. And so we are living in the days of when everything that is of the Father has been distorted. And we have become the creation that wants to tell the Creator what to do. We are the ones that want to stand before the creation and tell the creation, we are the creation that wants to tell the Creator to demand and command what He must do for us. Oh, my Father. All I can do is come before you and just repent before you and say, Father, forgive for what we have done. We have traded your right rulings, your precepts, your ordinances, the way that you want to be served by being able to make our own set of rules, our own set of commands. And truly, we are living in the time of like it was in the days when you spoke in the book of Judges. Each man does what they think is right in their own eyes. From the church to the things of the world, to the fact that we will have days that don't honor you, that we will have seasons and change and festivals being changed, Shabbats being changed, everything being changed, because this is just the arrogance of mankind. And I thank you, Father, that you are the one now in the hour that we are in, and I stand in awe of you, where your precepts and your right rulings will be spoken, and where you are going to use even the media right now that is absolutely a pawn of the enemy, but even that which the enemy uses for bad, you can turn it around and use it for good. And that you can use it for good, so that more and more people can come to know the truth of your ways. And what I find so amazing is that even with these things that are going on in the world now, where people will be wanting to look at an eclipse of the sun and a blood moon and the awareness of these things, and how they can come to the understanding that these things take place in significant times. And so, Father, I just really want to thank you, Father. I just really want to give you glory, honor, and praise for the fact that we have the privilege where you came to shake out of us everything that was not of you in terms of our wayward ways in walking in religious ways of the church. But help us, Father, not to be arrogant and filled with pride in thinking that we can look down on those that don't know our ways, don't know your name, don't know your Shabbat, don't know your feasts, and that we can actually, in our arrogance, look down on those that have no way of understanding what we know. But that we need to be a light, to be able to draw them in so that they can, by the way that we live and by what they see, they can be so convicted and so intrigued that they will want what we have, because they will see that there is a difference. And so, Father, in the hour that we are in, you are having to come and do a deep work in our hearts, to come and change us, to come and do a deep work so that we alone will be able to come and turn from our wicked ways and become the light that others need to see by you doing a deep work in us. And Father, thank you for this teaching that we are doing now, where we are looking at the fruit of the Spirit, where we've looked at the works of the flesh, but where we are now looking at the fruit of the Spirit, and where you are teaching us truly what love is. So I pray, Father, open up the mind of our understanding, open up our hearts, so that we may be able to have the deeper understanding of what you mean by love, being the very first fruit on our tree, love. And what does that love look like, so that we may understand, as we're going to go deeper into every one of these fruits, to understand what do you want. And so I thank you, Father, that you would open up the mind of our understanding, open up our hearts, so that we may be able to come and eat from your table, eat from your heart and that which you are prepared to give us. May you come and give us a meal for us to eat that comes from your mouth, your word that we want to be able to take and eat from, not from anything that comes from me, Father. May I become less so that you become more. And I thank you, Father, that as this message goes forth, I too am being convicted with everyone else to say, Father, may you manifest these scriptures in my life as you manifest it in all our lives. In Yahushua's name, I pray this. Hallelujah. So we were looking as we started last week, looking at the fruit of the Spirit, where I explained and I said that everything of the fruit of the Spirit starts, it's like there is 9 fruits. And these 9 fruits start with the first fruit, love, ends with the last fruit, self-control. And it's like everything else in between is being helped by love and self-control. Because to have love, you have to have self-control. To have self-control, you have to have love. Because everything comes forth from love, because at the end of the day, Abba Yahuwah is love. But we have to understand what love is. And we have to understand unconditional love. And we have to understand how the Father loves us. Love is not an emotional thing. And this is where the world has gone wrong. Because you see, 2 people come together, they make vows, and they are in love. But nowadays, love has turned into lust. And we are never to mistaken lust for love. Because lust is what you burn in your flesh for lust. And this is where young people come together, and this is the fornication that comes about, where if they're going to sleep with each other before they even get married, there is a fornication that takes place that was already starting with a lust process. And then we want to marry one another because we burn with lust. That's not love. Love is when you take those wedding vows, when you say, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, in good times and in bad times, till death do us part. I'm going to be there to love you. But you see, because the world has become so about lust, because everything that surrounds us, I mean, you can't even watch something sometimes on, I don't go into these things on, not even on YouTube, but there's some things that you go into where they're always advertising something for you. It's like, even if you were to watch normal TV, there's an advert that keeps coming up. And what's that advert for? To put you into a lust of your eyes. Lust for what you don't have. So everything that surrounds us, billboards, whatever, it's all about lust. Lust to have more, to have the pride of life, to have the lust of the eye, to have something that you don't have. And this is the lust. So when we look at lust, we tend to think of lust only as being something that is that happens because of a sexual thing. No. Lust goes a lot deeper than that. Lust is not just something that you lust for because of a sexual thing. Lust is something that you lust for because it's something that your soul, your mind, your will, your emotions desires. And that's what you're going to lust for so that you can get what you want. And we take it as, for example, David, that was not where he should have been. He should have been with the kings out at battle. And because he was not with the kings out at battle, and he was at home, because now he's king, you see. Before, when he was not king, he was out at battle. He was king, but he was hidden. And he was out at battle. Now he's known to be king over Israel. And where is he now? Relaxing at home. And now goes and sees Bathsheba bathing away and lusted for her. And that lust in which he lusted for her caused him to do what? Number one, take what was not his. Lust for a woman that was not his. And then what came out of that? So fornication and adultery, in her case, it was absolutely adultery because she was a married woman. She was another man's property. So he took what was not his. And then, when the lust was not enough, now he's taken what was not his. And then what did he do? He committed murder. Because now he needed to conceal what has happened. Because now she's fallen pregnant. So now he needed to murder her husband to cover his sin of lust. So do you understand? Lust brings murder in our lives in so many different ways that we don't even understand. In a marriage, lust will bring murder. When there is adultery that's taken place, it will murder a relationship that has been formed by the Father between two people. Because why? Because of lust. Because I have to lust for what I want. But do you understand? If you don't have self-control, the very last fruit of the Spirit, you cannot control the lust. Because a lust is something that can be controlled if you have the fruit of self-control. And so we are looking at this love. And that's why I'm saying love is not lust. Because the world loves in an emotional way. And that is why there's so many broken relationships, because all of a sudden, when the lust is gone out the window, there's no more love. Oh, we fell out of love for one another. How do you fall out of love? You cannot fall out of love when there is a commitment that has been made with one another. When we are in a commitment with the Father, you see, our relationship with our spouses should be like our relationship with our Father. It's not a thing that you have a physical only relationship with. You cannot have a lustful relationship with the Father. You have to have a relationship with Him that you are there to be able to enjoy His presence, to be able to commune with Him, to be able to fellowship with Him, that you commune with one another, that you share your heart with Him, that you're sharing what you're going through with Him. But you can't lust with Abba Yahuwah. Because why? Because the intimacy that you have with Him is the intimacy as a husband and a wife that is not with a sexual relationship. Because we've made it all about sex. And that was never what it was supposed to be about. Remember, when the Father allowed us to have that, it was for procreation. And this is why when procreation stops, that's when most of the affairs start to happen. Because all of a sudden, when a woman goes through menopause, and then there's a menopause. It's called a menopause. She's pausing of a man. Because why? Because now all of a sudden, she's not going to procreate anymore. And then all of a sudden you see these men that start running after young dolly birds. That will give them to fulfill the lust of the flesh. So do you understand that love is not about a lust thing? And this is why we need to put everything in its proper perspective. Because if these things are not understood, we make an emotion out of love with relationships that cannot be there. Jonathan and David had a love between them. But what was the love that they had between them? It wasn't a lustful love. It was a love that I am going to cover you. I'm going to walk with you. I'm going to protect you. I'm going to be there for you. I'm going to embrace you. I'm going to walk with you. Even when his father, Jonathan's father, was wanting David killed. Jonathan was trying to protect David in the midst of that. So at the end of the day, Father knows exactly what He's doing. And this is why He is the one who is going to be able to teach His people now that have such a warped society that we're living in right now. He's going to have to bring His right perspective, because we've got broken relationships, we've got broken marriages. It's just, it's so easy to just divorce and remarry. It's so easy. Because why? Because we're not willing to be able to understand what the Father wants in terms of a commitment of love, where we're willing to lay down our lives for the one that we are in covenant to. So that is why we are in covenant with the Father, and because we are in covenant with the Father, we are to understand His love, and we are to understand what He wants. And so we just praise Abba, for He comes and reveals a deeper revelation to us as we're looking at 1 Corinthians chapter 13. And so we looked at love is patient, it's kind, love does not envy, love does not boast, love is not puffed up, it does not behave indecently. So what is that word, indecently? Love does not behave indecently. It's the word G807. To be unbecomingly. To be inelegant. Wow, that spoke to me. To be inelegant. I thought, my goodness, how do you put that word, to be inelegant? Now, love does not behave indecently. So, how many worship leaders come and worship the King? Do they behave decently in the way that they dress, for example? I mean, understand, when Father had worship, when he had his tabernacle, the Levites had to be dressed differently to the rest of the Israelites. And they offered him worship in a specific way. That was how he wanted to be worshipped. But now we have this thing that, man, I can just be however I want. And then we behave indecently. I mean, I have been in a time of worship where we would be worshipping the Father while people are holding their glass of wine, while in a time of worshipping the Father. Now, what kind of reference is that for the Father? How can we be sitting over there worshipping the Father while holding our glass of wine? And then we're singing songs and going blah, 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 blah. What are we doing? That is indecent before the Father. When we do not behave the way that, when we do not understand His holiness, who we are and who He is, and that is why there's no fear of Yahuwah, because at the end of the day, we don't have a reverence, we don't have a respect, and that is the one thing that, like I said, that I truly, truly admire about the Jewish people. In their place of worship, you know, when they are in their place of worship, at the wall, they will not want anybody indecently dressed. You don't come before a holy Yah with your naked skin. You're not going to come before a holy Yah with your little spaghetti little tops and showing your arms and all your legs with your little shorts and your little short tops. You cannot do that, because there's a presence of a holy Yah there. Therefore they bring scarves and they start to cover you. They cover your whole body, they cover your arms, they cover your legs, because you can't walk dressed like that before a holy Yah. But you see, then I stand there and I look at the Christians and then I look at the Jews and I say, sure, there's a huge difference between them. But then again, the Christians will turn around and say, oh no, they are in bondage. No, they have a reverence for a living Yah that we have not learned, because we've made Him common. We've turned Him into a friend. He's my friend. I'm a friend of God. The songs that we sing, I am a friend of God. So because I turn Him into a friend, I think I can behave any way I want. I think I can carry on the way that I want. I don't have a reverence for a holy Yah. And that is where I see a reverence. That's why those children will come to the wall, and you don't see them carrying on screaming and being rebellious and carrying on when they are in the presence of the Father, because from the time they're little, they get to understand, when we go there, this is a holy place, and you are to behave yourself there. And there are many little children in prams all over the place. There are children. But you know what? You don't see them behaving in a way that they are screaming and shouting and carrying on, and there's no order. Because they have learned that in this place is Father's presence. But you see, where is the reverence that we are supposed to have for the Father, to be able to behave decently before Him, not indecently? So the love that I have for Him, so I want you to understand that this love is Abba Yahuwah's love. Love does not behave indecently. Love does not seek its own. Meaning, love is not seeking its own way. It's not putting my needs before everybody else's needs. So this is what I want, this is what I need. So if I need this, you just got to get out of the way, because I'm going to have my way. I don't care what you think, I don't care what you want, because this is my need right now, so my need will have my way. And this is what people do. So, because this is what I want, I am going to do what I want. This is my need, and therefore I will behave in a way that is not, I will behave in an indecent way to get what I want, and that shows that flesh is on a throne. And so therefore, love doesn't seek its own. So understand, in a relationship, we are to learn, no greater love is there than for you to lay down your life for another. But what makes us many times not do that? Because we are selfish. Because we are self-seeking. Love is not going to lay down your life for another. Love lays down its life for another, because love is not self-seeking. Love understands that it puts others before it puts itself. So, even though maybe this is not quite what you want to do, but you know what? You have to regard someone else. And sometimes it doesn't come easy to do that, because all of us want our own way. And so sometimes I have to stand back and I have to say, oh, Father, right now, this is not quite what I want to do. But yet at the end of the day, you have to take the place. Like, for example, I just take an example. I get more cold. Between my husband and Elsie, they get hot. So if we travel, or even when my husband is here, then, or even when I'm there when I go to Johannesburg, then he might want the fan on. I don't want a fan. I don't like a fan. I don't want an aircon. I don't want these things. Because I don't like it. So I have just learned to accommodate and say, okay, you just wear a long sleeve thing. Because at the end of the day, you can put yourself under a blanket or you can wear a long sleeve thing, but let them have their way. And so when I was in Joburg now, the last time when we just come back from Saudi Arabia, I didn't want that fan on because it makes a noise, and then I didn't want the fan because I didn't want the fan blowing on me. The last time I was there, I put the fan blowing on him and I moved it away from me, but this time I just didn't want it. So what did I do? I went and opened up all the windows. And in the middle of the night I was woken up because I had these mosquitoes all over me. And the next thing I know, we're having to kill about 9 or 10 mosquitoes in the room. And my husband looked at me and he said, babes, you don't want the fan, but the fan keeps away the mosquitoes. And I close the windows and I put on the fan so that the mosquitoes don't come in. And then I put the fan on because it's hot and then it's pleasant in the bedroom. So you see, I had to learn the hard way because I wanted my way. And my way was, I don't want a fan on. But then Father showed me that my way was the selfish way. And then in the end, I'm the one that got attacked by the mosquitoes. They weren't biting him, they were biting me. And so Father allows us to go through these little things to turn around and say, there's times that to keep the peace, you just have to submit. And as much as many times I don't like it, I have to accommodate and not always want my way. And so, love does not provoke. Love does not provoke. What is to provoke? Provoke is the word G3947. Oh, these words are difficult. Paroxuno. And it means it does not irritate, it does not provoke, it does not arouse to anger or to scorn. It does not despise, it does not exaggerate, it does not burn with anger, it does not stir to anger, it does not stir. So it's not going to provoke a brother to anger. So I don't know if you've seen how many times, I know that I used to fail this test many times, like especially when you're trying to phone for service in this country, when you're going to phone for a service place and you got to be left on that phone. And then all of a sudden you try and give them your story of what your problem is and you're getting no response. And eventually you start to become irritated. And then they start to get upset with you. And then they start to get angry with you. And if you just go into that little irritation a little bit more, it's not going to come out to your benefit. But when you start to calm down, when they are now trying to get upset with you, and you change your tone and you just become calm about it, then all of a sudden they become calm. But if you go in to provoke, where you're going to get angry and you're going to provoke the situation, then it's just going to fuel a fire. So the best thing to do is, when it comes to this place, to take a step back and to not provoke. To be able to come in the opposite spirit. Now you see, for that, we need to exercise the spirit of self-control. That is why it's one of the fruits of the Spirit. And that is why we've got to pray a lot for self-control, because people do not understand that self-control, we seem to think that we can just pray and the Father's going to take this away. No, it means that the Father is going to have to give you more of that, of His RUACH, for you to be able to operate in the spirit of self-control. And then it says, reckons no evil. So that's the word G2556, which is kakos, of bad nature, wicked, troublesome, destructive, harm, bad. So it's not going to want to bring evil on another, which is the bad nature, which is wicked, which is troublesome, which is destructive. You're not going to do a wicked thing to somebody that's going to be destructive. You're not going to do a destructive thing to somebody. You're not going to harm them by your action. You're not going to harm them in what you're going to be able to do. It does not rejoice over unrighteousness, but rejoices in the truth. It does not rejoice in unrighteousness. Unrighteousness is what? Iniquity. That's why it says that you practice lawlessness. Iniquity. G93. And what is unrighteousness? It's injustice. It's unrighteousness. It's a deed of violating the law. It's wrongness. It's unjust. It's wrong. And this is what we've got to understand. It's what is wrong. So, wrongness, unjust, wrong. Are violating the law. So, if we are going to be able to, we have to rejoice. We do not rejoice over unrighteousness. So we do not rejoice with the wicked. We do not rejoice with those that are unrighteous in this world. We do not rejoice with those that are breaking the Father's laws and the Father's ways, but rejoices in the truth. Do we rejoice in the truth? Do we love the truth? Do we love what's righteous? Because we are to love what's righteous, and we are to not be unrighteous. We are not to be able to go with the ways of the world and the people of the world that act unrighteously towards the Father. So if we are in a situation and we see the unrighteousness that's being done, what do? If we see the unjust, that which is unrighteous and that is which is unjust, do we just turn a blind eye to it? Do we just be quiet about it? There is a lot of unrighteous things being done at the moment. Do we just go with what people say because we don't want to really stand for what's the truth? And then again, the truth can be warped. Why? Because it's our perception of what our truth is. Not the truth according to the word, but the truth because of what has been taught us. And that's the other dangerous thing. So many times we think we're standing for something that is right because of our wrong misunderstanding and misinterpretation of scriptures, because of what's been taught us by religious systems. And that is not the truth. So, love covers all. Wow, this one really had to speak to me. Love covers all. Love covers all. So what does it do? Love is going to protect. It's going to cover with silence, to hide, to bear, to endure, to forbear, to suffer. So sometimes love has to suffer. It suffers while covering someone's sin. I remember sitting with someone, and this person was very, very fond of someone, and telling me how blessed I am for having this person in my life. But my experience was a different experience to what this person was explaining to me. Very, very different experience. And sitting there and explaining to me what a blessing I have. And I had had a different kind of experience. And at that moment, when I'm sitting with her and she's talking to me, everything in me wanted to tell her exactly the opposite to what she was telling me. Exactly the opposite. And I wanted to let her know what she needed to know, what I thought she needed to know. Because it was bubbling up inside of me, because I was getting rather upset. And the Father said to me, you will not do that. Because to her dying day, she will believe what she needs to believe, and it's not your place to expose whatever it is that you're wanting to expose right now. And I had to be silent. And I had to cover. It was very, very difficult for me to cover what was going on in my life. It was very difficult. But the Father said to me, it's not your place to do any such thing. Your place is to cover, because you have a covenant with me, and this is what I want you to do. And at the end of the day, that is when I had to say, because he said to me, will you love one that's not worth being loved? Will you love? And my words to him was, Father, I don't understand your kind of love. You'll have to teach me how to love. And if there's one thing that I've ever prayed, and the greatest prayer that I pray, and there was a song that I used to play over and over and over. I could play 3 hours the same song. Teach me to love as you love. Teach me to love as you love. But I have understood that when the Father put his love within me, which was only a drop, what I didn't understand was that that love was going to be a thorn bush that was going to come within my heart. Because for me to love as he loves, it was going to cause me a lot of pain. Because to love unconditionally is a lot of pain. Because you are going to still love people, even when they're going to stab you in the back, even when they're going to come up against you, even when they're going to do all this harm to you, even when they're going to betray you, even when they're going to do things that you stand back and you say, my Father, what did I do to deserve this? And this is the way it's going to be. Because you are going to have to learn to love unconditionally. Because that's how Joshua was. And everything that he went through, what makes you think you're not going to go through it? And I had someone the other day that said something to me that I want to say to you today that can maybe help you with certain things that's happened in your life that maybe you don't always understand. You know, there's things that happen to me that sometimes I don't understand. But like the Father had to say to me out of the mouth of this one prophet friend in my life, and he said to me, you know, Natalia, you need to understand something. Sometimes you go through a lot of things where people will come up against you, and then all of a sudden it turns things, situations, and then you coming out like like it was you were the one that was at fault. But you got to understand the Father allowed these things because He is the one who closes doors. And sometimes we go through things and we do not understand that it's the Father closing a door. He's the one who's closing a door, but you're trying to keep that door open, but He's allowed the whole circumstance of what happened because He needed you to move. He needed a door to be closed for you to move to where He wanted you to be, into what He wanted you to do. So sometimes things in our lives come because Father is wanting to move you to the next thing. So sometimes, even with people, you have relationships with people and you think these relationships are for life. But sometimes the relationship was only for a season. And you under the impression that the relationship is for life, but maybe it was really only for a season. There's some people that come into your life for a reason. There's some people that come into your life just for a season. There's some people that come into your life for a lesson that you needed to learn, that you needed to see, something that needed to teach you something. But I can tell you now, in every person that comes into your life where you go through hardships, where you go through things, don't point the finger at the person. Come back to yourself. Because at the end of the day, Father's trying to show you what's in your heart. It's your test at the end of the day. We always think it's that person. It's not that person. Father is dealing with you in your life. Whatever you're going through, it's coming back to you. What is He trying to expose in you? What is He trying to teach you? What is it that He's trying to put you through that's going to help you with the greater things that are coming in the further days that are ahead of you? What is He doing? Why is He equipping you? Because He's got a bigger work for you to do. That right now you could still be bound in things that's not His will and not His way. But you don't see it and you don't understand it right like that right now. And that's why He allows these things. That's why He allows us to be able to go through this. That's why He allows. You see, for you to cover, it's part of suffering. Do you understand? It's part of allowing you to go through a suffering of what He puts us through. Because you see, at the end of the day, love puts up with a lot. It covers mistakes and flaws. It will forbear. It will endure. So, even though the people do you harm, even though the people come up against you, love will endure even through that. That is why in a marriage, you can't now, for every little thing that your partner does, oh, your partner's not showing you love and your partner's not doing this for you and doing that for you. You know, in the beginning it's this bed of roses, it's this love relationship, it's like this lust and love and all of this. But once, after a while, you come to the reality that you are two different individuals, that are two different personalities that now are going to clash. And that's one of my greatest things that I have learned is to understand the personality profiles of people in a DISC system. Because I worked in recruitment for 9 years, it was my job. And so when I interviewed people, I needed to understand their personality traits to see, are they going to be suitable for this job by understanding their personalities? And so this was something that was so embedded in me that now when I meet people and I spend enough time with people, I can see straight away, okay, this one has got a D personality, this one is an I personality, this one is a C, and this one is an S, and it's, you know, and so it is this, you know, DISC system and where they fit in. Then I learned it in the biblical sense of understanding a phlegmatic kind of a person and a choleric kind of a person and a sanguine kind of a person and a melancholy type of a person, and then understanding those kind of people, and then you understand how those people are going to behave. And then what generally happens is when you are that, you will always marry the opposite to who you are. And then you know what the problem comes in. The exact opposite of the personality that you are is the exact opposite that you marry. You know why? Because your strength is their weaknesses, and their weaknesses, their strength is your weaknesses, and you complement one another, which makes this complete DISC system, which operates the way Father orchestrated it to operate. But you know what happens? That's not what happens. I try and change you to become like me. I can't change you to become like me. I can only come and be who I'm created to be, to do what I'm supposed to do in what the Father has got me to do in order for me to be able to fulfill His purpose and the plan. But now the other person gets upset with you because at the end of the day, that's not the way they behave, that's not the way they are, and therefore their insecurities and their issues will become a problem with you because you are doing what you know to do, because it's the kind of person that you are, because it's how Father wired you. But now you don't understand each other. And so now you are the person, if you are this person that is ready to do things, you're going to get frustrated with the person that's just going to sit back and tomorrow's another day. And now you want them to move on something, you want them to do something, and they're not doing anything. And now you'll stand back and you'll say, oh, Father, help, give me the grace. And so this is how marriages eventually come, and there's broken relationships, because that person's weakness is exactly what your strength is. And your problem is not to be able to come and hop on the weakness, but to be able to understand that the person is going to come alongside of you to help you in an area where you are weak. And this being their strength, they come and help you in an area that you are weak, but instead of you seeing it as help, you see it as an offensive thing to you. Because why? Because that's not the way you are. And so we now fight one another. So this is where there's a lot of broken relationships again. Because why? Because we have to bear with one another. We have to embrace one another. We have to love one another. We have to understand one another. And for me, understanding the way I've been wired, understanding the way that the Father has wired me together, has made it so much easier when all of a sudden I get attacked for being who I am and the way the Father created me to be, because I get misunderstood and I'm not understood. But I will see things differently to the way other people see things, because this is the way He's created me to be and what I am responsible to do for Him. But that becomes difficult for other people that are not like that. And so it either creates jealousies, or it creates insecurities, or it creates a bunch of things that shouldn't be there. And that's why I'm saying Father is having to clean the inside of the cup. Father is doing deep work to clean us up. Why? Because at the end of the day, if we do not clean these cups of ours, we are not going to be, how are we going to handle it when we are in a camp together and now we are all these different kinds of people with all our little insecurities and all our little issues, and every single time somebody's going to say something, it's going to offend me. We're going to have a problem. And so that is why He turns around and He says, love covers, it covers all. It believes all. It expects all. It endures all. So what is He saying? Love puts up with a lot. It covers mistakes and flaws. So even though there's a flaw, it's going to have to cover it. It bears, it will forbear, it will endure. What I always say is put yourself in the other person's shoes. Then you will understand where they're coming from, not just your point of view. And that is why when we really understand one another. So we are going to look, I just want to look at a scripture here, and then I will go a little bit deeper into this. 1 Peter chapter 4. Let's go into 1 Peter chapter 4 verses 8. Chapter 4 verse 8. Above all, have fervent love for one another, because love covers a great number of sins. So love is going to cover a great number of sins. And then it goes back to Proverbs 10, verse 12. And it says, hatred stirs up strife. So you see, the whole thing is, are we prepared to cover what has been done to you, or are you going to be able to bear hatred within your heart? Are you prepared to forgive and release, or are you going to bear hatred in your heart? Because hatred starts to alienate itself. Hatred starts to want to distance itself. Hatred starts to alienate you from that person, to come away from that person because you don't want to be near that person, because you've already now formed up hatred in your heart towards the person. You alienate yourself. You go into your own little space. And so hatred stirs up strife, but love covers all transgressions. So we have to understand nobody's arrived. Nobody's got it all together. Nobody's arrived. We are all on the journey, having to be able to, you know what, even this is sometimes what makes it so difficult for me. It makes it very, very difficult for me. Because people have this perception that I'm supposed to be perfect. I'm not supposed to make any mistakes. I'm not supposed to go into any mistakes. I've got to be perfect. Yeshua said there's no one perfect. We are all a work in progress. But you see, it's easier to tolerate somebody else to make a mistake than to tolerate that person to make a mistake. And sometimes it's difficult because people put people on pedestals. That's why we must never put anybody on a pedestal. Because you've got to understand, the person that you put on a pedestal, you can't put them on a pedestal because they are human just like you are, and they will make mistakes just like you do. And they are still flesh beings. And all of us are in the process of having to crucify our flesh. And that is why I'm saying to you, before this message speaks to anybody, it's already speaking to me. Because I know that I'm not there. I know that I have mistakes. I know that I'm not perfect. I know that the Father is working in me. I know that the Father is doing a deeper work in me. In some areas I've overcome with flying colors, and in other areas I'm still dragging my feet and crying many tears before Him and saying, oh Father, please help me in this area. But are we willing to just be patient with one another? Because we have to have patient endurance. So love puts up with a lot. It covers mistakes and flaws. It will forbear. It will endure. It overlooks imperfections. Because we have to understand nobody is perfect. And it overlooks imperfections and failures. So many times when we walk this path, there is a time that we have to understand. Please do not misinterpret what I'm saying to the time when the Father needs to bring correction. Part of bringing correction is part of His love. Because Father chastises those whom He loves. And sometimes we have to bring correction. And when we bring correction, the person doesn't perceive it as love. The person perceives it as condemnation. The person perceives it as how they receive it is based on what is the emotional state of their own heart. So many times when there's correction that is being brought, the person will perceive it in a negative light because of their own insecurities, because of their own low self-esteem, because of their own rejection, because of the issues in their own heart. Oh, I remember in the beginning when Elsa and I first started walking together. It was difficult. Because she came from a place of where she had so much rejection that the way that she battled with me many times. Because sometimes I would speak something and it wasn't because I'm trying to judge her or anything. I'm bringing something and then her rejection would kick in. And then all of a sudden she would go into this place of it was so difficult, and I would think to myself, now what the heck did I do wrong now? But then I realized that it was that emotional pain that was within her that needed to be dealt with. And many people will come now and say, oh, if we just had a relationship, if we could just walk with somebody like you would be able to walk, the relationship between us and but people have no idea what we had to go through. Because I had pain, she had pain. I came from my pain, she came from her pain, and between the two of us, we had to learn to be able to come and embrace each other in the place of pain. And my rejection would kick in with certain things. Her rejection would kick in with other things. Then there would be jealousies, and then there would be this, and then there would be that. All these things was what was having to be worked through. It was no bed of roses. And that is the same as when you've got to walk with somebody. These are the things that we're going to have to understand is going to be there. The same as what there is like in a marriage. You have to learn to embrace one another. You have to learn to walk with one another. You'll have to learn to understand that person and understand when two people come into a marriage and both of you are broken, you've got to understand you're going to hurt each other. And so it accepts people without judgment. So it will accept somebody without having to judge them. Because this is generally what we do. Then we judge the person. This is what love does. This is how it covers a multitude of sins. It's going to overlook the imperfections and the failures. It's going to accept people without judging them. But you see, many times, because of our own insecurities, because of our pain, we always see that person as judging them. The person is not judging, but it's the way you perceive it. Because of your own insecurities, because of your own rejections, because of your own pain and your own hurt. And that is why the Father's trying to clean up his body. Peter saw Yeshua forgive men who denied him and people who betrayed him. Love is not a feeling, it's an action. How do we treat others? How do we show them love? We are patient. We are kind. We are not puffed up. We do not boast. We do not behave indecently. Love never takes advantage of other people. Love does not condemn, it forgives. Love does not condemn the person for what they've done. Love forgives the person for what they've done. You don't condemn the person, you forgive the person. Love is committed to do what is best for someone else, no matter the cost. So you are willing to do what is best for the other person, even if it means you go through the difficulty yourself. Not, I will do what I want because this is my right. You don't have a right. You gave up the rights the day that you gave your life to Yeshua. You have no rights. Love does not sit and behave indecently because it wants its rights. Love does not seek its own way because it wants its rights. Well, it's my right. I have the right to do this because this is mine. I have the right to do this. Love does not behave like that. Love sees another person better than themselves. Love will turn around and say, look, you know what? I will take the lesser seat. But you see, that's not what people do. Oh, absolutely not. Love wants its, arrogance wants its own way. Pride wants its own way. Pride will sit there and say, I have the right to do this because I'm in charge. Love is committed to do what is best for someone else, no matter the cost. Love bears all. Love bears all things. It endures all things. It hopes all things. It believes all things. When we're filled with His Spirit, it is easy to forgive the wrongs been done to us. So when we are filled with His Spirit, it's very easy to forgive the wrongs. Look, I'm not going to say it's very easy. It's still a process. And if we start to see it differently, if we start to see that the Father has allowed this to be able to come and do something in our lives with it, then we're going to handle it differently. This is the way I've come to now accept things in my life. I'm starting to look things from a different perspective now. And especially after me climbing the mountain, I'm at the place that I'm saying to myself, I'm not even going to go down that road. I'm not even going to entertain this now. I really am not. I climbed my mountain, I faced my giants, and I have to talk to myself and say, just die to flesh here. I know you don't like what's being done. I know you don't like what's happening, but you just got to die to flesh. That's it. And allow the Father to have His way. So when we are filled with the Spirit, it is easy to forgive the wrongs that has been done us. But when we are not filled with the Spirit, that is when we are not going to want to forgive. So we have to allow the Ruach of Yahuwah to work it in us, both to will and to do His good pleasure. When we forgive others, we walk in the agape love of the Father. Forgiveness is loving others in spite of their sin. Did you hear that? That's how marriages are going to last. Forgiveness is loving others in spite of their sin. Can you embrace the one that comes before you and says, I'm sorry that I hurt you. I'm sorry that I did this to you. I'm sorry for what I did here. Are you going to embrace them and forgive them? Or are you going to hold it against them? Are you going to bear a grudge against them? And you're going to distance yourself from them? And you're going to say, well, you know what, I'm sorry, I don't want anything to do with you. Forgiveness is loving others in spite of their sin. So even though there's going to be sin, love is going to forgive that person in spite of the fact that they sin. And you open yourself up to be hurt again. And you open yourself up to be hurt again. And you will be forgiving of that person. How many times do we have to forgive our brother? 70 times 7. Did it say they did it once and they may never do it again? But you see, we don't understand that. When Yeshua said, when Peter asked Yeshua, said, how many times must I forgive my brother? And he said 70 times 7 in one day. So if he's done it again and he's done it again and he's done it again, you have to forgive him and you have to forgive him and you have to release him and you have to forgive him and release him and you have to love him irrespective. But is this how we treat one another? Well, you'll never come in my sphere again. I want nothing to do with you again. And so we have to truly understand Father's love. And that is why He says love never fails. And whether there be prophecies, they shall be inactive. So you see, there can be people prophesying all they want. If they have not love, their prophecies are inactive. Or tongues, they shall cease. Or knowledge, it shall be inactive. So you see, you can go and study everything that you want in your Bible school. But if you do not have love, of what use is all the knowledge that you have obtained if you have not got love in your heart? Because knowledge just puffs up. And so people can go and acquire all of that. Yet how do they treat people? What are they doing? We know in part and we prophesy in part. But when that which is perfect has come, then that which is part shall be inactive. When I was a child, I spoke as a child. I'm reading from 1 Corinthians 13. I'm continuing to read verse 11. When I was a child, I spoke like as a child. But when I became a man, I did away with childish matters. For now we see in a mirror dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then I shall know as I have been known. And now belief, expectation, and love remains. So prophecy will be done away with. tongues could be done away with. All the knowledge that we obtained will be done away with. But what is going to remain? Now, belief, expectation, and love remains. These three. But the greatest of all is love. So you can prophesy all you like, you can pray in tongues all you like, you can do all the great works that you do all you like, but if you have not love, what are you? And so I want to close off. I have a friend well, she's now become a friend, one of the ladies on our group. And she sends me, in the morning, she's been sending me this like little messages. It comes from a book. That is a book that's like a love letter. And it was interesting because a few weeks ago, it started with 1 Corinthians 13, and that's why I'm saying this thing was already starting in my heart as the Father was already starting to do a work in me. And then when I got to this Galatians chapter 5, and I started with going into the first fruit of the Spirit, which was love, then the Father said, but you need to start at 1 Corinthians 13. So I'm going to read to you from this book, as they have put here, summarized 1 Corinthians 13, and I want to be able to close off with this. If I can speak in tongues of men and even angels, if I can speak in every human and angelic language but have not love and charity for others, I will be like a meaningless noise if I have not that love inspired by Yahuwah's love for us and in us. Yahuwah's love produced in the heart by the Holy Spirit. I would be only a loud clanging bell or a noisy cymbal. I would be no better than a resounding, echoing gong. If I have the gift of inspired preaching, if I have prophetic powers to interpret the divine will and purpose, if I fathom all the sacred truths, if I am wise and possess all knowledge, if there is no secret hidden from me, no knowledge too deep for me, if I know everything, about everything, and even if I have perfect and sufficient faith, so complete that I can remove mountains, but have not love, Yahuwah's love in me, I am nothing, a useless nobody. There is no value to my life. If I dole out all that I have on the poor and bestow my goods to feed the hungry, if I distribute all I possess in charity but have not love, it is no good to me. Even if I welcome a martyr's death, if I surrender and sacrifice my body to be burnt at the stake, if I am burnt alive for the preaching the gospel, but I have not love, I am not in the least benefited. I gain nothing. It profits me nothing at all. If I am without love, love is gentle, benign, and pervading, penetrating the whole nature. Benign and penetrating the whole nature, mellowing out all that would have been harsh and austere. Love suffers and endures long. Love is very patient and very kind. Love meekly and patiently bears ill treatment of others. Let's read that again. Love is very patient and is very kind. Love meekly and patiently bears ill treatment from others. The love of which I speak is slow to lose patience. It looks for a way of being constructive. Love impels one to deny self for the sake of the loved one. Love is gracious. Love is never envious. It never boils over with jealousy. Love does not sing its own praise. Love is not arrogant or conceited. It does not put on airs, neither does it cherish ideas of its own importance. Love is not inflated with ego and pride. Love is not pompous or boastful. It is not vainglorious or puffed up. It is never anxious to impress and does not display itself haughtily. Love does not act unbecomingly or behave unseemingly. It is never indecent and never deals perversely. Love is not rude or unmannerly, demanding its own way. Love is not selfish or self-seeking. Love cares more for others than itself. Yahuwah's love in us does not insist on its rights. Love never seeks its own advantage. Love is not touchy or irritable or fretful. Love is not resentful. Love does not brood over injuries. Love is not easily provoked or aroused to anger. Love does not lose its temper or fly off the handle. Love never nurses its wrath. It keeps it warm. Love bears no malice. Love can stand any kind of treatment. Love does not take offense or store up grievance. Love pays no attention to a suffered wrong. It keeps no record of wrongs. It takes no account of evil done to it. It thinks no evil. Does not rejoice at injustice, unrighteousness, or iniquity, but rejoices when right and truth prevail. Love takes no pleasure in wrongdoing, and it is never glad when others go wrong. Love does not reveal when others grovel, but delights in the victory of truth. Love allows, love always protects, always perseveres. Love bears all things, believes all things. Love bears up under anything and everything that comes. Love is ever ready and always eager to believe the very best in others. Love's first instinct is to believe in people. Love is always ready to make allowances. Love overlooks faults. There is nothing love cannot face. Love is always supportive and loyal and trusting. Love is always hopeful under all circumstances, at all times. Love never regards anyone or anything as hopeless. Love never loses faith. There is no limit to its faith. Love never gives up. Love gives us the power to endure everything without weakening. Nothing can happen that can break love's spirit. It does not lose heart or courage. Love endures all things, and it remains strong. Faith, hope, and love abide. These are the three greatest that will keep on and last forever. Faith is the conviction and belief, respecting man's relation to Yahuwah and divine things. Hope is joyful, confident, expectation of eternal salvation. Love is the true affection for Eloah and others, growing out of Yahuwah's love for us and in us. Have faith steadfastly in Yahuwah, hope unswervingly, love extravagantly. The very best, the greatest of these is love. Love never fails or falls away. Love can outlast anything. Love never comes to an end. Love lasts forever. Love is eternal. Hallelujah. Praise Abba. Earnestly seek to acquire this love. Make it your aim and your greatest quest. Let love then be your highest goal. Follow after the way of love. Let love be your guide. Desire it with your whole heart. Put love first. You must want love more than anything else. Spare no effort to obtain and keep love. Be constantly pursuing this love. Earnestly endeavoring to possess it. Go after love as if your life depended on it, because it does. Hallelujah. Thank you, Abba Yahuwah. Abba, my Father, I just want to thank you. Abba, truly. If I read the mouthful that I have read, and if I look in the perfect mirror of 1 Corinthians 13, I can only bow very low before you, because I know that I'm nowhere near that order. I'm nowhere near what is written in this beautiful love letter that you gave us in 1 Corinthians 13. And so I pray, my Father, that as I have said so many times before, from the time that I came to know you, the greatest thing that I seeked of you, I didn't seek anything. I didn't seek wisdom, as when Solomon stood before you. You gave him wisdom. I didn't seek wisdom. I didn't seek anything. The only thing I've ever seeked of you, Father, is to teach me to love as you love. But I have understood that this love is going to cost a life to be laid down, and it's going to be with a lot of pain and a lot of suffering. And this is what we do not understand, is that the kind of love that you want is a lot of suffering and it's a lot of pain. Because the enemy then wants to harden our hearts. And instead of making us love, it makes us become hard of heart and callous, where we try to protect ourselves and say, never again would I allow that to be done to me. But love has to allow itself to be of nothing, and allow you to have your way. And so, Abba Yahuwah, I pray that if I look at this, Father, there's no one that I even know that walks in this, because we all fall short. But I thank you, Father, that you alone will be able to come and do a great work that only you can do. Only you can come and work this great work in us. And that is why I say we have to go through more pain and more suffering, and go through more to allow you to come and light each one of those candles in us to become the light. Because at the end of the day, the only time that we can become what this is saying is when you are fully walking, when we are totally and utterly died to our flesh, and when you are the only one working in us. And I don't know when that will be. And I can understand why Paul said, the very thing that I want to do, I do not do, and the very thing that I don't want to do, I do. And so I ask you, Father, come and have your way in us, that we need to look into this word to realize that we have not arrived, because our hearts are still callous, because we carry a lot of pain within it. And only you can come and uproot everything within us that is not of you. So I thank you, Father, for this understanding and for this teaching that you are giving us in this 1 Corinthians 13 in order to be able to love. I thank you for this in Yahushua's name. And so we declare the Aaronic blessing. Yevarechecha Yahuwah v'yishmerecha. Yair Yahuwah panav elecha v'yichunecha. Yesa Yahuwah panav elecha v'yichunecha. V'yasem lecha shalom. Yahuwah bless you and keep you. Yahuwah make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. Yahuwah lift up his countenance upon you and give you his shalom. Shabbat shalom, beloveds.